Hello, everybody. It is Ask Dutch Anything. Of course, every single Tuesday you will find us here, Dutch Mantell and the figure of Dutch Mantell and the University of Dutch hat perched upon Dutch Mantell's head as well. We'll do the very quick version of the... Oh, there's another hat as well. Are you actually selling these, Dutch? I mean, you keep showing them, but...
No, I am.
Okay.
I am selling them.
Have you made more? Have you got like more of a consignment of hats now?
Well, I'm still on the first batch because I was slow in getting it out. I don't get in a hurry. That's the problem. Hey, I'm just getting caught up on my orders from Christmas.
Yeah, you're nearly there, though, aren't you? Now,
I'm there now. Yeah,
very good.
hey,
Well,
there's a few more. Hey, listen, I mailed out a couple of my hats, and this is the box that I mailed it in. It came back to me to my address, and I'm thinking, did they just get confused? But it didn't say rejected or no such address or nothing. They just sent it back to me. I'm going to go up there and I said, listen, I don't know what kind of drugs your post office carriers are on, but they need to be able to read.
all right, then. We'll do the quick version. We're on Facebook, Storytime with Dutch Mantell. Please follow us there. There's a lot of exclusive stuff and silly bits, and I just post Simpsons stuff there as well, just to amuse myself. We've got merchandise as well, of course. 2 books for me, 2 books for Dutch. You know this. Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com if you want signed stuff, including the hats, including the diplomas, including the books as well. Pro Wrestling Tees, links are in the description, like with everything else. And also, I want to make mention the Stevie Richards show, the brand new show with me and Stevie Richards, is going to be out every Friday for the foreseeable future, unless I decide to change days, which I'm just now deciding, just in the middle of recording this for whatever reason. But it's on Fridays at the moment. It's going down very, very well indeed. I hope you will join us there.
How many subscribers do you guys have?
We got nearly 10,000 without posting a single video, which is
Really?
pretty
That's
amazing.
good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's good.
And
We are at, for the people who are counting, 119,000 subscribers on here.
So we've got a ways to go to catch up with myself, I guess, in that sense. But hey, well, there you go. The most important thing to say is questions for dutch@gmail.com. That is the email you write to submit your questions to the Dirty Dutchman from Oiltrough, Texas, the crafty veteran Dutch Mantell. So many of you have done this. We can't get to all of them because we get so many questions in, but everybody on this list has indeed emailed questions for dutch@gmail.com, and here is the first one. It's from Jimmy Leon. And he says, how hard were punches actually thrown, especially to the face or forehead? Was everyone pulling their punches, or did some hit harder than others? Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Some guy knocked the crap out of you. Listen, I've said this before, the wrestler's motto, do no harm. But some of them didn't know. But see, it's not the punches to the head, it's the chops that you get. Some of those chops were as hard as they could be. Like Stan Hansen hitting you with those chops. Oh, he just blistered you. And in Wahoo, McDaniel hitting you with those chops, or Johnny Valentine, it was just brutal because you could hear it all over the arena. Now, the punches to the face, yeah, I've taken a few. And the first one, you let it go. It was a mistake. The second one is due a receipt. And I've sent a lot of receipts out because a guy, if he hits you hard, he knows he hits you hard. And he expects to get a receipt, which I've delivered. Boom. And then he'd say, well, I guess we're even. Yeah, I guess we are. But I'd always say, no, you hit me harder. Then I hit you. but yeah, it was according to who you win the ring with. Now, if you was in the ring, and I said on on the regular podcast about the Samoans, you never knew they were there. They were lighter than air. And it's hard to believe guys that big and that massive could be so easy if they wanted to be. If they didn't want to be, very little they could lay on you. Hell, if they just got you down laying on you, you couldn't get up. You'd be blowed up trying to get out from under them. But yeah, some punches were kind of stiff.
Who'd expect you to hit them the hardest? I remember you saying a couple of things before on Gypsy Joe, Tommy Dreamer. I remember those two names. Were there anybody else out there that just wanted you to just lay it in as hard as possible?
No. Those guys were unique. Because, first of all, I was with Gypsy Joe one night, and he was going to get a chair, and I got it first because I didn't want him to get it because he'd use it, and I know what he'd do with it. If he got the chair, he would wear me out. So I would get it first, then I'd throw it outside the ring. So he'd have to go to it to get it, and then I'd have time to recover. Joe would hit you with the ring so hard he would shake your foundation.
Jab.
Now he wouldn't hit you in the head; he'd hit you in the back. God, he'd just kill you. So, and I don't know if somebody told Joe it was real or not, but again, it was like me wrestling Brockus. It was like a street fight. Gypsy Joe too. It was a street fight every time you got in the ring with him.
Who had the worst aim? It's like, you're supposed to punch obviously in a safe place, but who would just like smash you in the teeth or the nose?
Well, you got to protect yourself. If a guy's going to hit you, you turn your head this way. So if he does hit you, it's going to glance off. So as soon as he hits you, you're selling the punch anyway. So there was a lot of guys that would Stan Hansen be one. I think Bradshaw, he was pretty tough with it because he liked it. He didn't mind you if you hit him hard. He didn't care. So he'd dish it out, but he could take it too.
Next question. Kevin says, Dutch, do you have any Eddie Marlin stories? He always took a great ass kicking. My favourite memory of him was the boot match and build-up he had with Tommy Gilbert. Great podcast, guys.
Yeah, Eddie Marlin, he was the father-in-law of Jerry Jarrett, and Jerry married his daughter. I forgot what her name is now. But and then Eddie he used to be a wrestler, but he became like a spot show promoter. He would run the spot shows around Nashville and from between Nashville and Memphis, and he just run everywhere, but not too far away. And he was a good guy, and the shows would be well promoted. And I've been on a lot of shows with Eddie where they sold out. In little town, you go to a little town, you got maybe 6,000 population, and you put 1,500 people in the gym. That's a lot. I mean, it's not just from that town; it's from the outlying regions. And I used to love to work those shows because the energy inside the building was electric. And, you put 1,500 people in a high school gym, and you get a lot of noise, a lot of kids. And I remember we was at one show in Kentucky, and I forgot what happened, but Steve Kern and Stan Lane were the fabulous ones. And we had some battle royal in some Kentucky town, and they were stripping clothes off Jimmy Hart, and they got his shirt off of him. Then they pulled his pants off, then his shoes and his socks. So he just had his underwear, and Steve got him in the ring, and actually pulled his underwear off. And the last time people saw Jimmy, he was running back like this. And because of that, we were banned from ever presenting another wrestling show in that town ever. They probably lifted it now, but we were banned from that town. And it caused such a turmoil that some of the preachers I heard on Sunday morning were talking about it, talking about the debauchery of the wrestlers. But And Jimmy Hart, I said, what happened? He said, I couldn't stop him. I was trying to hold my underwear on, but he just pulled them on. Crazy.
Do you think this was a pre-planned thing, or
I don't
just
think
spur
so.
of the moment?
I think the fabulous ones were after Jimmy anyway, just ribbing him. So when they stripped him naked, the laugh was on Jimmy, and he didn't much like it. The town didn't much like it. The sponsor didn't much like it. Jerry Jarrett didn't much like it. Eddie Marlin did because he promoted the town. We never went back to that town. I don't remember the name of it, but it's right across the line up in Kentucky.
Yeah, Eddie Marlin's daughter was called Deborah.
Deborah, that's her name.
Yeah. Very quickly, just because I know I always heard Eddie Marlin's name here, there on the Memphis TV shows, and he'd occasionally come on, almost like an authority figure who would be rarely used. Did he ever have any stake in the company at any point?
No, just other than as far as I know, he just ran the what we call spot shows. Other than the regular town, any town that we would run would be the spot shows. And, I guess he got a salary from Jerry for doing that, but he made his money off the towns. Because he would get and how the spot show promoter would work. It was still a game of thirds, 30. And it was, he'd have to pay 10% to the office for a booking fee. Then he went 30, 30, 30. Mm-hmm. 30 for the sponsor, 30 for the talent, and 30 for Eddie. So if Eddie got 30% out of a $10,000 house, he was okay. Minus the taxes.
Of course. The dreaded taxes, let me tell you. Next question. Skinny Kenny, Cookeville, Tennessee, has written in and said, I think that if George Gulas had come to Evansville and sold shirts with his face on the front that said World's Worst Wrestler and on the back, Daddy Said Sell, he could have made a good payday. What do you think?
Probably. Daddy Says Sell. That was one of his another of his sayings. I've called George Gulas, for those not familiar with him. He was the son of Nick Gulas, who was the longtime promoter in Nashville, Tennessee. And George was the worst I've ever seen. The worst. I mean, he was tall. He's about 6'3". Thought he could play basketball, but he was so uncoordinated. And Bobby Eaton was teamed up with him one time. I forgot what they were called.
Oh, the Jet Set.
Oh, the Jet Set. Oh, my God. And Bobby hated it. But Bobby did all the work. And George, I saw a match between me and George when I first come to Tennessee, I don't know, years ago. I didn't like him then. I didn't even know him. So I stayed away from him, didn't give him nothing. So what I was working for is that if I didn't give him nothing and I didn't try to have a good match with him, he would never want to work with me again, which worked. He didn't want to work with me. And if he'd have come up with those T-shirts to Evansville, he'd have probably sold a few because people would remember what I said about him. Daddy Said Sell, and what was the other thing he said?
Of just World's Worst Wrestler. It was the suggestion.
Oh yeah, he was the world's worst.
Well, why don't we see? Because I'm not sure we've ever done this before, and I've been meaning to for a long time. There is a match on YouTube. It's a tag team match. On one side, George Gulas, of course.
Yeah.
And on the other side is a young up-and-comer called Chris Gallagher.
Yeah,
now, Dutch, who is Chris Gallagher?
He died. Well, that was my alter ego, but he starved to death. He didn't make enough money to feed himself, and he died, so he's long gone. So you have a tape of this?
Certainly do. Why don't we watch it? How about that?
It was in Chattanooga, by the way. This was a Saturday night in Chattanooga.
Let's key it up in 1 sec. Okay, now we're back. So I've muted it. I don't know how loud it is. I'll turn it nice and down. So who's your man there?
My partner.
Yeah.
That's Don Kent.
Don Kent.
He was one of the original Kangaroos.
Uh-huh. Oh, we mentioned him, I think, last week, didn't we?
Yeah, maybe.
Look at this.
Now.
This is virile, handsome man in the...
and there's Tojo Yamamoto.
With the
Who,
Andre the
who was
Giant
actually,
singlet.
he was actually from Hawaii. He
Mm.
wasn't from Japan. As Jimmy Kent, our manager. I don't think Jimmy, I don't think he had a sixth grade education. Oh, there it is. There's George got the, oh, and I'm threatening him. Oh, he cranks it the wrong way. Oh, here we go.
He's
Here
also
we
got
go.
2 hands on the wrist with the wrist lock when you should have it on the back of the palm, thumbs
Oh,
on the back of the palm.
Boy, that was a hell of a punch by Don. Look at him.
What a punch.
Another right to the chest of Chris Gallagher. And Gallagher is dropped.
Is this the first time you've seen this? Or did you watch it?
No, I've seen it before. I try not to watch this. But look, he's got the wrong arm.
Oh, he's on the left, isn't he?
No, he's on the left, but he had the right one a while ago. What is that? I don't know.
Why did he just turn around? Oh, it's because the manager sort of...
Well, anyway, this was Saturday night after Chattanooga. We had done live Chattanooga TV that morning. I mean, that afternoon. Then we would go right to the building.
So you're not in anymore, but George Gulas is, so we can enjoy a bit more George Gulas selling. Look at that punch. Sorry, audio listeners, but he seems to be punching as if he only has one arm. It's like the other arm like dangles down to the floor when he...
Up! The old duck. The people popped on that. People were a lot easier back in those days.
Who's the referee? Did you say who the referee was?
That is Ricky Morton's father.
Really?
That's Paul Morton.
Paul Morton.
You didn't know that, did you?
Well, I knew his father was in the business, but...
Yeah, you were learning so much. That's Paul Morton. That's Ricky Morton's father. And I remember when he passed away.
Yeah?
Oh, my God. Look at this.
What the hell? Why did he do a stomp? You were like 4 feet off the floor.
I have no idea.
He's a lanky streak of piss, isn't he, old George Gulas?
But, you know, if this... Yeah, you'd have to watch that Tojo, too. Tojo would chop the crap out of you, too.
Gee, yeah. He looks like it. He's one of the guys who stayed loyal to Nick, wasn't he, when the
Yeah, he did.
Why?
He did stay. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think he trusted Jerry, and he'd worked for Nick for so long.
Oh.
And he...
So, I was just in awe of that forearm. Sorry, so he didn't trust Jerry?
Okay, this is enough of this.
Okay, then. Well, sorry, we're on a different story now. God, some of them punches are just...
terrible.
Can you arrest someone for that?
Impersonating a wrestler?
Impersonating a wrestler, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, he should have been arrested. Yeah. Seriously. He stayed.
Yeah.
This was a lifetime ago. This was right after, probably a year or two after I met Sika Anawai. Anawai, that's the way you say it?
Yeah.
It was wasn't long after that. So I broke in there, and actually I learned to work there after I got away from George. You know, George is too much.
Why Chris
Gallagher?
Said,
he's just a name I made up.
Oh, but he just said you need to be something else, and that's what you
No, I made it up. I didn't want to be my real name. So I was looking for a name, and the Dutch Mantell was given to me by Ron Fuller's father, Buddy Fuller, who is, if you study Southern wrestling, I don't know how many people would do that, but he was one of the starters of Southern wrestling. And there's a town in Tennessee, I can't remember the name of it now. Damn, if I thought about it. But it all started right there. One guy went to New York to wrestle and come back and brought it back to Tennessee. Pro wrestling.
It's like Herb Welch. Was he the...
Herb Welch, and it was, what's the name of that town in Tennessee? They were, Dyersburg, Tennessee, and they kind of branched out from there. And then they ended up owning a part of Florida, Buddy did, part of Georgia, Buddy did, Then they owned Alabama. It was the same bunch of guys. And then they never got into Tennessee, but Ron did later on in Knoxville. So it was Nick was a horrible payoff man, probably one of the worst. Paid me okay, because I said I can't do it unless you pay me this. So he paid me for the times. It wasn't a lot of money, but for the times it was good.
Speaking of which, just getting back to what we said before, why didn't Tojo Yamamoto trust Jerry Jarrett then? And he just kept accepting stinky payoffs.
Yeah, Jerry Jarrett. No, I think they took care of Tojo. I think Nick always took care of him for some reason. And I think that he didn't trust Jerry to take care of him like that. And I think he wanted a guarantee, and Jerry was just starting up and he couldn't afford it. He didn't know whether he could pay it or not. But, Jerry Jarrett's mother, Teeny Jarrett, she made so much money. She was actually doing mortgages with her money. So she had to make some money. And she started off working as an assistant in the office and worked her way up. And I don't think she ever married. I don't know. I don't think she was married when she had Jerry. I think that was her only child, I think. And he was always very loyal to her, and she was always very loyal to him.
We need to get Jeff on and just chat about these days, because I think we've been threatening that for ages.
He knows the history. So I don't know if we can get Jeff on, since he works for AEW, and he may get some heat, because
he can take it.
See, it's because of your AEW hate that we can't get Tony Khan on here.
Well, they should put better on. You should put better shows on then. All right, we're going to move on. I don't hate it because of me. It's boring. Anyway, next one. Mark has sent a link to. Do you remember we were talking about this a week or two ago? GCW Superstars. It was Georgia Championship Wrestling, the offshoot of, that you ended up being a part of for like 6 weeks or whatever, however long it lasted. So he writes, and here's an episode of GCW Superstars that featured Dutch doing an in-studio promo with Michael St. John at the 29-minute mark. If you notice the opening, the show uses the classic GCW on TBS music and footage. This is also the promotion where Cornette did the cake spot for the first of 4 or 5 times over the years. So why don't we have a look at the promo that you did, and we can scrub through a bit of the footage as well.
I may not like this. I haven't seen it.
Okay, let's have a look then. Back recording. I don't know who these people are.
Three, and that's going to be it.
Oh, quality of the audio. Let me just scrub this forward slightly. Hang on.
Edition will be every Saturday here on Channel 3, and we invite you to join us in the studio.
Sorry, audio listeners.
11 until noon.
This is horrible quality. This is Michael St. John.
We invite you to see all the action tonight at the Memorial Auditorium here in Chattanooga. Matches start at 8:30, and that big main event, Superstar Phil Dundee in a grudge match with Dutch Mantell. We have Dutch out here with us right now, and Dutch, I know you got something to say.
Yeah, I got something to say to Superstar Billy Dundee. Now, nobody's officially welcomed me back to Chattanooga, but I'm glad to be back here. Now, you people just saw a tape of Dundee. Now, I tell you, he won that match, he won the battle, but he has not won the war, because I've come all the way here to Chattanooga to see you, Dundee. Now, when I get you in that ring tonight, just a few hours from now, Dundee, I'm going to show you exactly what an American can do. Now, I guess you're proud to be an Australian. Well, I'm proud to be an American. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show all these fans in Chattanooga, that what an American can do. Now, Dundee, the only reason you won that match, I had you bleeding, I had you down, and I had you beat. You took that belt and you hit me, buddy. But I'm going to tell you, they don't call me Dirty Dutch for nothing. What's the back of that chapter?
Dirty Dutch from
It
Texas.
says Dirty Dutch, and I didn't get that name by kissing babies on Sunday or shaking hands on Saturday night, baby, because when I'm coming looking for you, Dundee, and when I come looking, I usually find somebody, and I'm going to find you tonight. Now, you can't run, you can't hide, because I got you right where I want you, right in that square circle. A lot of people in Chattanooga like me, and I like Chattanooga myself. But when I come down there, I got a reputation up on Dundee. I'm going to dang sure uphold it. I'm going to do my dead level best to put you down, because I brought something with me. It's always with me. It's called the Texas Bullwhip. And if it gets out of hand, Dundee, I won't hesitate to use it. Dundee, you show up, baby, because I'm going to be there.
Dutch Mantell.
That's right, baby. Do you know what? You don't call me baby enough, Dutch.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sorry, but so where was this? This was Chattanooga.
I guess so.
I
Yeah.
I don't even remember this.
So here we go. There's a very short-lived attempt to have a second Georgia crew running towns like Chattanooga and Knoxville, while the regular Georgia crew were flying around, running places like Ohio and West Virginia. So there you go. So there's quite a few things. Steve-O. God, that's a name, aside from Jackass, I've not heard in wrestling terms for quite a while. Pat Rose, Jerry Novell and the Angel, Frank Morrell.
Jerry Novak.
Versus the Stray Cat, Ken Wayne and Ken Woodby. Dutch Mantell interview, Steve-O and Ray Candy, Bill Rose, and you can read it. It's for the audio. Carl Fergie.
Yeah.
That was Lawler's cousin, wasn't it?
It sure was. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. I don't know anything about Carl Fergie. Was he bald? Or am I thinking of someone else?
No, he wasn't bald.
Okay, then give us some...
You know who else was the cousin of Lawler?
Well, Honky Tonk.
Honky Tonk Man. And I think a few more that I can't remember right now. But...
Well, what do you think of that interview that you did there? Because, I mean, you've got absolutely no memory of being in this promotion at all.
It was okay. I mean, you know, they try to run them off. We didn't do that during our live show. We did that, you know, at an interview session. So, no, there were people there, weren't they?
Yeah, I could hear some cheering, yeah. So that was the studio show in the day for the big show in the evening.
This was a weird deal, too. They broke us off from Memphis to send us over to damn Chattanooga, and then to Chattanooga, we do a tape in Chattanooga. Sometimes we do it in Knoxville. But between those two towns, if they'd have really spent some time knowing what they were doing, you know, those are two good wrestling towns. Really good. But it never went for us because we were brand new. We had TV, but just because you got TV don't mean that people are going to watch you or they're not going to support you. So you got to tell the story and that was even before I knew how to tell a story. I was listening to the booker tell me what to do. And that's why the booker is so important. And you know, being out of Memphis on a Saturday, you know what it meant? Cool. You didn't do Memphis TV. So you was out of any kind of a good angle in Memphis. You may have went to Memphis, but you'd be second match because they couldn't do anything with you because you were off lollygagging somewhere else. Now, I don't know whose idea this was, but it didn't work.
I believe we discovered this was something between Ole Anderson and Jerry Jarrett trying to work together. But you know what they say about promoters trying to work together? I mean, they can't agree what they want for lunch, let alone, you know. There's any promotions, because I know like a couple of years later or a year later, there was Pro Wrestling USA. We've talked about it before. And they ended up just squashing you in Memphis to Harley Race and Dory Funk Jr. But have promoters ever worked together long term and it's worked? I'm sure, you know, like hand in glove like that was meant to be. Not like a working relationship like Vince and Eddie Graham.
They may have worked together, but usually one was just carrying the other one. The other one may have put some money up. But see, Paul Bosch, and he wasn't the only owner of Houston. I think he had some more like secondary investors, but they'd all left it up to Paul to do it because he knew what he was doing. Yeah, it was because this business has always been piecemeal till the WWE came along and kind of put it all together, or AEW put it all together. But see, when you work for these companies, hell, you'd be moving every year, because you wore your welcome out. You can't make Chattanooga 52 weeks a year before the people get tired of you. That's why you need a story. And if the story's not there, they got to replace it with another story. And it was very, you didn't know how it was going to draw, and it was very iffy. It was an iffy promotion.
Next question. Tammy Carvello has written in and asks, Bryan Danielson's contract is expiring with AEW. Do you think he could be the 6th Wyatt member?
Sure he could. If they pick him, anybody could be the 6th Wyatt member. I think what you meant to say was, do you think he would be a good choice? Oh, that's different. No, I don't think he'd be a good choice. I really don't.
No?
Because he'd be covering up himself, and they can get anybody to play that other part, that 6th row, I guess. But see, I didn't like all these characters because you got one to get over now. That's Uncle Howdy. If you start putting all these other characters in there with him, you're going to dilute him, and pretty soon he'll go the way of Bray Wyatt's run. They won't know what to do with it, and I don't think they know what to do with it now. My opinion.
In another manner of speaking, after Bryan Danielson's contract runs out, do you foresee him maybe going to WWE? Because he has said that, after this, he's retiring, he's done, he'll just do a few matches a year. But WWE sure are paying a lot of money these days. Do you think they could lure him back out with a Shawn Michaels-style Legends contract and he just wrestles a couple of times a month?
Well, what is the Shawn Michaels Legend contract worth?
These days, Craig, I mean, they were paying Brock Lesnar $12 million a year to make a handful of appearances.
I don't believe that. I really don't. You believe that?
I do. I think they would pay him that much. He's one of the few people still that people believe in. And he would bump up interest on any pay-per-view he was on. If he was worth $12 million or not, that's up for debate. But I think they'll pay him that.
I still don't think they were paying him that. I don't. I really don't.
Next question. Mike Tompkins says, hello and greeting from the UK. First of all, I'd like to say great podcast, thank you. It keeps me going whilst driving my truck for hours, so over the country, is how he writes it. Anyway, my question is about the referees and how you get qualified. Is there an age limit and what kind of training is involved? Have you ever been a guest referee, Dutch, and if so, what was your experience like? Keep up the great work.
I've been a guest referee, but only as a part of an angle. I don't know what it takes to be a referee. I guess somebody who shows up and says, hey, I bought this referee shirt. Can I be a referee? And there's not a lot of training for it, I don't think. And the referees they're a dime a dozen. You can get anybody to be a referee. But it's not a lot of training. I don't know of any referee schools at all. And you look at WWE, where do these referees come from?
Well, now they train them, but in the performance center, I guess. But do you know what? I heard quite a lot of stories about how people got into refereeing. Is essentially they were working on ring crew. Well, working for nothing or working on the ring crew, and then
putting up the ring.
Yeah,
driving the truck.
Yeah. Oh, we're short a hand tonight. Here's a referee shirt. Get in there. Just count the 3.
That's it. That's all you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, referees don't really have to. They're there because they want to be there. Not because, they expect to make a lot of money. They know they're not going to make anything. They just want to be around wrestling. That's what I got to say.
Next question. Jeff Cox says, did Dutch ever work with or was on a card, I'm rewriting these as I read them, with Brute Bernard? He was such a character in the Mid-Atlantic area in the early 70s.
Never met him at all because I never went to he was in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. He was in the Carolinas territory. I never got there before he was done through. I never knew him work anywhere else except the Carolinas. Where else did he work? I
can check.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I'll pause 1 sec. Okay, glasses on time. Let's have a look. Mid-Atlantic. Oh, he wrestled quite a few different places. Even in WWE, very briefly. World Class Wrestling Association.
WWE?
Yeah, apparently so. Very briefly.
When did it start?
Crikey knows. AWA, Central States, Continental. That's not the CWA Memphis, is it? He even appeared in Memphis briefly in 1977 with the Angel, apparently he tagged with.
I never met him. I missed him.
Georgia, 75 briefly, 68 briefly, that was it. He seemed to maybe just do a week here and there and then disappear. Back to Mid-Atlantic, I guess.
Maybe.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so we'll... sorry, that was a bit of a dud question, but I like the question, so it was worth asking. Lance has written in and says, did Dutch ever wrestle Killer Tim Brooks? And who was Dick Murdoch's cousin? Brooks was a heel in Texas for many years and possibly the Central States Territory. Thanks. So, Killer Tim Brooks.
I didn't ever work against him, but I teamed up with him. My first night in Houston for Paul Bosch, I was teamed up with Gary Hart. And who was the one they were talking about? Tim Brooks.
Yeah,
Tim Brooks. It was me, Gary Hart, Tim Brooks, and we were against Gary and I think Lance Von Erich and Fritz. And we was and I remember the house was, it was a huge house for some reason. And I had just come in there, and it was actually my first night there. And I was in a 6-man tag. And we were in different dressing rooms. See, they were all the way across in the other dressing room. And I was all the heels were back all the way across the arena. I had never even met Fritz or any of the two boys. And we got in the ring and we had a match. And Gary Hart was the booker. And I just called it in the ring. I got that tape somewhere.
It's not the one with the 2 rings, is it?
It is with the 2 rings. That was a double ring battle royal, which I hated. It made no sense at all to me.
What, a battle royal was 6 people on 2 teams?
It wasn't a battle royal. It was a match.
Oh, you said battle royal.
No, that night they had a double ring.
I got you.
And we was in one of the rings. So I ended up in the other ring and got back in, and wasn't a bad match. It was okay. You could see my athletic prowess very strongly in that.
I'm trying to figure out. It wouldn't have been Lance at that time, but it might. So it would have been David and Kevin. I figure Lance came a lot later. He was the fake one.
Maybe it was David and Kevin.
Yeah, we should watch that. Should we?
Well, you can watch if you want to.
Nah, we won't watch it. We'll leave that. Okay, we'll move on. Tarzin, I hope I've said your name right, from Turkey. I was reading about Doink and how many wrestlers portrayed him, and I wonder how common it was to let multiple wrestlers play the same character when they were masked or dressed up the way that you couldn't tell the difference. You need to find someone with the same height and weight and be able to do the same moves. Does Dutch have any good stories about having to find a wrestler to replace one as the same character? And if so, did it end well? Did fans spot the difference? Was it a failure? Or maybe did the wrestler replacing the original become the better one? So, replacing masked wrestlers with another masked wrestler and not telling anyone.
Oh, we would, if we did that, everybody would know it in the dressing room. The fans would know it without telling them. So we never really, the masked wrestler when I was coming along wasn't a big deal, except for maybe Wrestling 2. And they never tried to replace him or get somebody else to pose as him, because he would have went nuts. See, Johnny Walker was basically just nobody had ever did anything with him at all. And he had quit the business. And I forgot where he was. And I think somehow he got a chance to go back for Jim Barnett as Wrestling 2, and he went and he got over. So he was never really over except his Wrestling 2. As Johnny Walker, nothing at all. But when he went back as Wrestling 2, because of the popularity of Wrestling 1, he got over. And he stayed over, and he worked a long time for Barnett, and apparently made a lot of money.
Trying to think, is this just something that, like, at that time, this was just like outlaw show stuff that they would you like try and advertise like a Mr. Wrestling 2 on an outlaw show, and then actually it'd just be Joe Schmo from whatever?
Yeah, you could, but they didn't give a crap. They're going to have like 50, 100 people show up max. And so if somebody said, "Oh, that ain't him," they didn't get mad. They just accepted it and says, "Hell, he ain't gonna come here. This he's not gonna come here this little ass town." So, yeah, a lot of promoters would do that, but I don't remember any of them doing it. But I'm sure it wasn't above them or below them.
Next question, Steve Parry, UK. How did you feel about being around Jake Roberts' snake? And were there any wrestlers who were particularly scared of it?
Junkyard Dog was deathly afraid of the snake. Don't even mention the snake around Dog. He'd climb a wall. And Bob Armstrong, too. I mean, they just had a deathly fear of snakes. Was I afraid of the snake? No, not really. But the snake always stayed up. He always stayed in the bag. Now, if he was slithering around on the floor, yeah, I'd be scared to death. Because these snakes were big. I mean, these weren't little snakes. They weren't little snakes like this long. They were like, I don't know, 8 foot long. And those snakes wrap around you. That's how they kill you, I guess. But no, I wasn't afraid of the snakes. But I did not want to be alone in the room with a snake. I have a fear of snakes too. Snakes and mice.
Mice?
I have a fear of them. I don't know why, but I'll jump around but snakes, if I saw a snake coming at me, I'd be gone. If I got on something, if that snake tried to come up, I'd try to kill the snake, I guess.
I've got
Are you afraid of snakes?
No. My uncle had snakes.
I'm definitely afraid of them.
No, he's currently got an albino corn snake, which are like the least offensive snakes. But no, when I was a boy, I've got a photo of me holding a massive boa constrictor. I was never afraid of them.
Well, don't they bite?
Not that time, no.
Well, I mean, not that kind. They don't bite?
Not really. No, they're fine.
Where did you get a boa constrictor in England?
My uncle had... Okay, right, so I'm really not that keen on tarantulas, and he also had like a dozen tarantulas in boxes. He just seems to be really into pets, I guess. Maybe it wasn't a boa constrictor, but what, like another constrictor snake kind of thing? What's another famous snake? Anyway, it's a big fat snake that constricted its prey. I know that.
Well,
like a python.
I wouldn't be around it.
With Jake back in '96, he's got like the religious gimmick going on. He's got this big, I think it's called Revelations. He calls the snake. Anyway, it's like big white python kind of affair. Was anyone scared of that snake specifically? Because I don't know if it was as threatening, or was anyone like in the mid-90s terrified of that particular snake that you remember?
Oh, there's a lot of guys. Kamala, scared crapless by a snake. I mean, if you just had one and you mentioned to him, he'd be gone. He really would. A lot of people don't know about Kamala, but he was a hell of an athlete.
Oh, yeah.
And when he ran, he's going to chase me one time. Hell, he run me down. He weighed about 330, but fast. So Junkyard Dog, Kamala, and there was a few more. Bob Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't come at them with a snake. And me.
Andre, apparently. Andre the Giant, he wasn't keen.
Was he afraid of snakes?
Apparently so, yeah, I think so.
Well, I don't blame him. Because you're not supposed to like snakes.
Yeah, the Bible teaches you that.
It does.
Don't trust the snake.
I didn't pay attention to the Bible that much. I actually know a lot more now than I did then. But snake it travels on the ground on its belly and slithers at you. I'm gone. I'm out of here.
Well, the difference is over there, quite a lot of them are poisonous, whereas here, there are practically no snakes. I mean, they're so rare, and there is one poisonous one. Then the last time someone was bitten and died was like in the 1800s. So, it's
okay, in some churches, they have to demonstrate your faith. You can have a snake, and your faith is supposed to outweigh the snake, so he doesn't bite you. They spend a lot of time that snake just latch on right there, and some people have died. That's, to me, I don't care how much.
Didn't have enough faith.
No, well, that's what they would say. But I don't care how much faith I had. I would not sit and hold a snake to where he could bite me.
Next.
He might not share my same beliefs.
Well, he might be a Protestant or something, this snake. We'll move on. This is the one that you've been waiting for. Vince has written in and says, "Hi, Dutch and James. Did Dutch ever cut a match short because he had to use the bathroom?"
Oh, yeah, I've done that. But I'll tell this one. I'm in Cleveland, but I wasn't wrestling. I was managing, and that damn Bradshaw was in the ring. And I forgot who he was working with. And I'm standing there as quietly as I can because I can feel it. So finally, John comes close. I says, "I got to go, man. I speed this up." He said, "Oh, I will." So I'm standing there, and he didn't speed it up. He slowed it down. Then he kept looking at me, and I'm like, "God, come on." And he would look over there and smile. I knew what he's doing. He's dragging it out. Brother, I took it about as long as I could, and I just left him in the match, and I just walked away. And I bet the people said, "Oh, what's wrong with him?" But the people really pay attention. They could see the way I was walking. I had to get to the bathroom. I barely made it. And John come back, and he was laughing like hell, thought that was the funniest thing in the world, but it wasn't. But I did make it, but barely. So, and they've been some other times, yeah, I almost did it. And I've heard, did we talk about Andre doing it?
We've alluded to it beforehand, yeah. So, did he do it on purpose, or
no? He was in Mexico, and he was working with Bad News Allen, and he had gone out the night before, and it was tequilas, and it was this, and it was that, and he ate some food. So actually, when he got in the ring, he was about to explode. And he did that sitting on Bad News Allen in the corner. Brother, Andre exploded. And he exploded so much, it actually come out of the bottom of his trunks. And it was, this is a crude thing to say, but it was all over Bad News Allen, and Bad News Allen couldn't get up because Andre wasn't getting up, so he was trapped. Can you imagine being trapped under 500 pounds of a guy using you for a toilet? And so finally Andre got up. It was all over him. I don't know what the crowd did. I guess they roared because it was the heel that was covered with doo-doo, but and that would be hard to live down. You're the guy that Andre just dumped on. We've heard about Vince doing it. Maybe that's where Vince got the idea to do it.
Maybe.
But it was funny to everybody but Andre. That wasn't funny to him.
Well, no, bad news.
And it wasn't funny to him either.
No.
Yeah.
Do you know if I was in Bad News position, I'd tap. I submit. You've won.
Yeah, but it's still on you.
Mm.
You're still covered. There's no way to win now.
Right.
If it happened to me, I swear to God, I'd be throwing up immediately outside the ring on the way back to the dressing room.
Have you ever wrestled anyone who shit themselves or pissed themselves or anything like that, or have you been lucky in that respect?
You have a keen interest in this.
Yes.
People dumping on
Yeah,
themselves.
no, I do.
Yeah, you never really think about that, a wrestler taking a dump on himself during a match, but it's happened.
What's happened? John Cena's admitted it. It's happened to him.
Yep, it's happened to him. And who else did I read?
Matt Hardy.
Yeah.
CM
Hey,
Punk.
it's and a lot of guys that has happened to, they really won't admit it, and I've done it too, partially, but not all the way. But it's the feeling that you're going to have to do it at some point. Then it does. That's it. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm out here.
It's 20-minute draw. It's like it's only been 4 minutes. It's like just call it.
Just say just DQ me. Do that. But it's on TV. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. You're about to.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, we're going to finish on this one, and here it is. David from Omaha, Nebraska says, do you think Barry Windham was past his prime in WCW when he won the NWA World title in 1993? He just looked to me mentally and physically burnt out. So you've seen Barry Windham in like the 90s and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, was he burnt out?
It's a good question. I mean, he was like a bad guy, had the scruffy beard, the ponytail, and that kind of thing. I think he was probably more burnt out in the 90s when he went to the WWF as the Stalker, when you were actually in the company at the time still.
He didn't do anything as a Stalker. No, I don't think he was burnt out in, what'd you say, WCW?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think he was. He had just come from Florida, and this was in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Mid-Atlantic. No, he was in his prime then.
Well, that was in the 80s, maybe in the early 90s, maybe just.
And he may have been burnt out. He may have been, but what I think, he was more. He was drinking more, and he's never been a guy to work out anyway. He's always been but he's a great athlete. You could tell how great an athlete he was. Even when he got heavier, he still had the moves of an athlete. So, but I don't think he was past his prime. I really don't. But his prime was rapidly approaching.
So with Barry, I'm sort of the same as you in a sense. Is that, but he would do this with the WWF or WCW. He would do this with everyone. It's like as soon as he didn't want to be somewhere, man, he'd just go. And it's as simple as that. I mean, I think he just left Vince McMahon high and dry like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, well, some guys would do that. They wouldn't give a notice and nothing. They just get up and leave. I've done that a time or two myself.
Who else had a reputation for doing that?
Well, I don't know. Who would do that? I'm trying to think right now. But if you're going to do that, you're talking about a top guy.
Mm.
Very few top guys did it. They would always try to give a notice so the people who booked him, so he could work his way out and put over who needs to be put over on his way out. But when he left like that, that makes it hard for everybody else. Now I know he's getting tired of being there, and he just didn't want to be there anymore. But he has certain obligations, I would think, that to help the guys that he was leaving. Because guys put him over when he got there. So by the same token, he needs to put somebody else over on his way out. But he didn't do that. And he can claim that, oh yeah, I'm just burnt out. I just can't do it no more. Well, yeah, you could do one TV. That wouldn't hurt you. Just to do that.
I'm wondering if, as the question writer asks in, with 1993, this was post the Kendall Windham Blackjack Mulligan legal issues at the time. Do you remember what all that was about? Because I think you were in WCW at the time or thereabouts when all that went down.
Wasn't it about money or something? Or
were they counterfeiting money?
well, I heard that, but nothing ever came of it, right?
Didn't Kendall get arrested? I mean, they got arrested, but did they do time?
I've never heard anything about that. I heard about the counterfeit money now that you bring it up.
Okay, well, I'll just keep on recording just while I just quickly scan the Wikipedia. In 1990, Windham and his father Blackjack Mulligan were arrested by the United States Secret Service in a joint investigation with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for counterfeiting. The authorities found close to $500,000 in phony $20 bills. As a result of a plea agreement, both father and son spent 24 months in a federal prison and were released in 1992.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
You would have sent them like a file or something like that, try and escape.
Well, they got 2 years.
Yeah.
In a federal prison.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't say what federal prison, right?
No, it doesn't. But there you go. I mean, I'm sure if I looked into it more, I could find it, but in the short space of time, no, I can't. So, on that note, well, there you go. We've both been educated there that they actually did end up going to prison.
That is a question I'm trying to think. That would be a great question in a game that's, what's it called?
Wrestling Jeopardy or something.
It could be. But I never knew that. I knew something about the counterfeiting. When you said that, I remember that, but I do not remember that they were sentenced to prison for 24 months.
There you go. We've learnt something. Well, we're an educational show as well, dare I say. So if nothing else, there you go. Hopefully you've learned something unless you knew it. And then you didn't learn anything.
Oh, did you know that?
I knew they'd been arrested. I didn't realise they'd done time. I didn't realise the specifics.
Well, this is an educational experience for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too. Oh,
there you
good.
go. Right, so on that basis, hopefully you've learned something, or unless you knew it and then you didn't learn anything, basically just watched us learn something for the first time. But for now, thank you everybody for watching. So once again, the plugs very quickly, books and blah, blah, blah. Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com for your signed merchandise from Dutch. Questions for Dutch at gmail.com if you want to submit a question for next Tuesday's Ask Dutch Anything. The Stevie Richards Show is out every single Friday on a YouTube channel with the links in the description and, of course, all podcast platforms.
I'm going to listen to that.
You should. Darn it.
How long is it now?
Oh, the show. I don't know, about 1 hour 50, that one, I think, to be one.
Okay. But you went 3 hours.
The one
what did y'all talk about for 3 hours?
Jeez, we had, I swear, 8 subjects, and we went for 3 hours, and then Stevie's audio completely crashed out. Like, didn't work at all. So it's just me talking to myself. So we re-recorded today on Thursday.
What were the topics?
A few of them that were actually shared with Storytime with Dutch, because we did a bit of news. Scorpio, stabbing, Wyatt 6, Shane McMahon, Jacob Fatu, and Seeker. Oh, so actually, it's really, really similar stuff, quite frankly, to this week's Storytime with Dutch. This isn't a news show, by the way. We just went through a news thing for the first episode, and hopefully people enjoy it. But for next episode, it's going to be more evergreen stuff rather than news. It's going to be a potpourri of stuff. Really, it's sort of like this show, but also entirely different in that respect.
A potpourri of show.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes.
I like it.
Hopefully you'll enjoy it.
And what's the name of it?
The Stevie Richards Show, every Friday, YouTube and all podcast platforms.
Tune in, folks. And while you're there, subscribe.
Yes, absolutely. But for now, we'll catch you again on Friday. We the people.
We the people.